Imagine discovering that the people you trust the most might be the ones plotting against you. Your family, your colleagues, even your closest allies. Nothing is what it seems. Secrets, betrayals, and a game of survival where every choice could cost you everything. Today, you're about to step into a world where loyalty is tested and alliances are deadly. Before we continue, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more stories like this. The night it happened was colder than usual. The kind of cold that crept through walls and settled in bones, even though it was only late autumn and not yet winter. Esther Jones remembered it well, because she had been sitting in her room by the window, watching the city lights sparkle, when she heard the sound of her father's voice shouting downstairs. Wilson Jones was not the kind of man who shouted. He had always been calm, steady, the man who tucked her in at night and told her, "I will always keep you safe, Esther." That was why the sound of him yelling made her rush out of her room, her heart thumping hard. When she reached the study, the door was wide open. Papers lay scattered across the floor. Wilson was pacing like a storm trapped in a room, his face pale and sweaty, his tie loose as though it had been clawed at in anger. On the desk lay a letter marked with a silver crest of Grayson Enterprises. Her mother, long gone from the house, was never there to calm him. Esther stood frozen at the doorway. "Dad," she whispered. Wilson spun toward her. His eyes were red, his jaw trembling. "It's over," he said in a voice so broken it hardly sounded like him. "They've destroyed me." Esther stepped forward. "Who? What do you mean?" He picked up the letter and slammed it down again. "Anthony Grayson. That snake. That thief. He's taken everything." He collapsed into his chair, burying his face in his hands. Esther swallowed hard. I don't understand. I thought you said the company was doing well. That your project was solid." Wilson gave a bitter laugh that had no humor in it. "It was. Until Grayson found a way to rip it apart. He bribed partners, leaked documents, planted lies in the media. I trusted him once, Esther. We had a deal. I should have known better. Grayson doesn't make deals, he makes graves." The room seemed to tilt around her. The Jones family company, the name she had grown up with, the work her father had poured his life into, gone. "Dad!" Her voice cracked. "What will we do?" He lifted his head, and for the first time in her life she saw not strength, but defeat in his eyes. "What we will do," he said slowly, "is survive. But you must remember this, Esther." He grabbed her hand with surprising force. "The Graysons ruined us. Anthony Grayson ruined me. And his daughter, Selena, will carry that same poison in her blood. Never forget who your enemies are." Esther wanted to protest. She wanted to say she didn't want enemies, she just wanted her father to be okay. But the words stuck in her throat. That night, she lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling while the sound of her father's weeping drifted through the thin walls. She had never heard him cry before. It was the beginning of the end. The weeks that followed were worse than she could have imagined. The company folded. Investors pulled out. Wilson's name, once respected, became a stain in the business world. They sold their home, moving into a cramped apartment in a part of town Esther had never visited before. Neighbors whispered. Old friends vanished. And Wilson changed. He was no longer the father who laughed over breakfast or listened to her stories. He became quiet, hard, his eyes fixed on invisible battles. When he spoke, it was about Anthony Grayson, always about him. "Grayson thinks he's won," he muttered one evening as he sat at the table, untouched dinner in front of him. "But men like him always fall. One day, Esther, you'll see. One day, his empire will burn, and when it does, I want you to remember the ashes." Esther looked at her father and nodded, though fear knotted her stomach. She didn't know then that years later, those words would come back to her like a curse. 5 years later. The elevator ride felt endless. Esther's hands tightened around the strap of her bag, her reflection trembling in the golden metal of the doors. She wore her best blouse and skirt, though both were second-hand, and her hair was tied back neatly, but she still felt like an imposter. The glowing numbers climbed. 14, 15, 16, until finally the bell chimed and the doors slid open. Grayson Enterprises. The lobby was sleek and intimidating, filled with glass, marble, and people who looked as though they had been born wearing confidence. Esther stepped out, her legs stiff, and forced herself toward the reception desk. Esther Jones. The woman behind the counter gave her a tight smile. Mr. Grayson's assistant is expecting you. This way, please. Esther nodded, her throat dry. Every step she took felt heavier. She thought of her father's face the night he had lost everything. She thought of his warnings. Never forget who your enemies are. But here she was, walking straight into their world. The assistant led her into a large, glass-walled office. And there she was, Selina Grayson. Esther recognized her instantly, even though they had never met. She had seen her in magazines, standing beside her father at events. Selina was tall, elegant, her dark hair sleek against her sharp cheekbones. Her eyes were a piercing blue that seemed to see through everything. She didn't smile. So, Selina said coolly, leaning back in her chair. The new assistant. Esther swallowed. Yes. I'm Esther Jones. Selina's lips curved slightly, not in kindness, but something closer to mockery. Jones. As in Wilson Jones. Esther froze. Selina tilted her head, watching closely. I thought so. My father mentioned the name once. Interesting choice, hiring you. Heat rushed to Esther's cheeks. I just needed a job. Selina gave a soft laugh. And you came here. Bold. Or foolish. Their eyes locked, the air between them thick with something unspoken, history they had inherited, but never chosen. Well, Selina said briskly, standing. Let's see how long you last. Come with me. The day was brutal. Selina assigned her tasks without pause, organizing endless files, typing reports with impossible deadlines, fetching coffee only to have it criticized. You call this hot? Selina frowned at the cup. Try again. And maybe this time, remember people actually drink it. Esther clenched her jaw but said nothing. She did the work, over and over, silently. By lunchtime, her feet ached, her head throbbed, and she wanted to scream. But she held it in. At one point, as Esther was sorting through documents, Selina leaned close and said softly, so only she could hear. Do you know why I push you? Because I don't trust you. You're Wilson Jones's daughter. And in this building, trust is more valuable than gold. Don't expect me to hand it to you. Esther looked up, meeting her gaze. I'm not my father. Selina's smile was sharp. We'll see. The day dragged until evening. Most of the office had emptied, but Selina still sat at her desk, tapping away at her computer. Esther stood by the shelves, filing the last of the documents, when she noticed something. Selina's bottom drawer, locked with a silver key. Selina opened it briefly, slipping a file inside, then closed it fast, her eyes flicking up as if daring Esther to notice. For a second, their gazes locked again. Selina said nothing, but Esther's curiosity burned. What was in that drawer? She didn't know then how much that question would cost her. At home that night, Esther sank onto the thin mattress of her bed in the small apartment she shared with her father. Wilson was sitting at the table, staring at old files spread out in front of him. His hair had gone grayer, his eyes harder. How was it? He asked without looking up. Esther hesitated. It was fine. Fine. His voice snapped sharp. He looked up. Or did that viper's daughter make it hell for you? Esther swallowed. She could still hear Selina's mocking voice, still feel the sting of her cold blue eyes. She made it clear I don't belong there. Wilson's jaw clenched. Of course. You're in the lion's den. You can't trust her, Esther. Remember what I told you. Graysons are poison. Don't let her trick you. Esther nodded, But something in her heart stirred uneasily. Selina hadn't been kind, no, but there had been something else in her gaze. Not just cruelty. Something deeper, darker. And Esther couldn't stop thinking about that locked drawer. The second week at Grayson Enterprises began like the first, with Esther standing outside Selina Grayson's glass-walled office, clutching a folder too tightly in her hands, and trying not to look nervous. Inside, Selina sat with her usual air of cool command. She wore a pale grey suit that fit her perfectly, her hair pinned neatly back, her eyes fixed on the screen as if the world beyond her desk didn't exist. She looked untouchable, like marble carved into the shape of a woman. Esther knocked lightly. Selina didn't glance up. "Enter." Esther stepped in, placed the folder on the desk. "The report you asked for." Finally, Selina's eyes flicked up. She opened the folder, scanned the pages in seconds, then gave a soft laugh. "You call this a report?" Esther stiffened. "I followed your instructions." "You followed some of them. Not all." Selina shut the folder and leaned back in her chair, folding her arms. "When I tell you to prepare a report, I don't mean copy and paste figures. I mean understand the numbers, anticipate the questions my father might ask, and have the answers ready before he even opens his mouth. Do you see the difference?" Esther's cheeks burned. "I'll fix it." Selina smirked, as if satisfied by her discomfort. "Do that. And next time, try thinking 2 steps ahead." The morning only worsened. Selina piled task upon task on her desk. Esther ran across the floor carrying files, answered calls that came too quickly, and typed notes until her fingers ached. Every time she thought she was caught up, Selina found another flaw. "You missed a decimal point. This sentence is clumsy. Rewrite it. These papers are in the wrong order. Are you even paying attention?" By noon, Esther felt raw. She wanted to shout, "I am trying," but she bit her tongue and kept her head down. At one point, Selina called her closer. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a set of charts on her screen. "Do you see the trend?" Esther leaned in. The graphs were complicated, full of rising and falling lines. She hesitated, then said quietly, "It looks like the profits are higher when the smaller branches handle distribution instead of the central office." Selina's eyebrow rose. "Exactly. At least you can see that much." Then, after a pause, she added in a lower tone, "Most assistants I've had couldn't even read a graph." For a moment, Esther caught a flicker of something unexpected in Selina's eyes, approval, or perhaps relief that someone could keep up. But it vanished as quickly as it came. "Don't look so pleased with yourself," Selina said coldly. "That was the easy part." The afternoon stretched long. When Selina finally dismissed her, Esther gathered her bag with trembling hands. But just as she turned to leave, she noticed Selina standing by her desk drawer, sliding a file inside. The silver key glinted as she locked it. Selina caught her looking. Their eyes met. "Curious?" Selina asked softly, her voice smooth but edged with warning. Esther looked away fast. "No. Of course not." Selina smiled faintly, like a cat amused by a mouse. "Good. Curiosity can be dangerous here." Esther left quickly, her pulse racing. That night, back in the apartment, Wilson was sitting at the table again, papers spread out like old wounds. Esther put down her bag and sighed. "Another hard day?" he asked without looking up. "You could say that." She sank into the chair opposite him. Wilson's eyes finally lifted, sharp and probing. "That girl, Selina. What's she like?" Esther hesitated. She thought of Selina's cold words, her sharp smile, her piercing eyes. But she also thought of that one flicker of approval, the brief moment when they had almost understood each other. "She's difficult," Esther said carefully. Wilson gave a humorless laugh. "Of course she is. She's Anthony Grayson's daughter. He raised her to be a weapon. Don't let her fool you with her polished looks. Underneath, she's just as rotten as he is." Esther said nothing, staring at the table. Esther. Wilson's voice hardened. Promise me you won't trust her. Not even for a second. I promise, Esther whispered. But her heart wavered. Because part of her wasn't sure it was true. By the end of the month, Esther had learned two things. 1. Selina Grayson could slice a person to ribbons with nothing but words. 2. For all her sharpness, Selina carried shadows of her own. It started one evening, when most of the office had gone home. Esther had stayed late, finishing paperwork Selina had demanded by the next morning. Her eyes were heavy, her back stiff, but she refused to leave it unfinished. Across the room, Selina was still working too. She typed quickly, paused, rubbed her temples, then typed again. The light from her desk lamp threw harsh angles across her face, making her look older, almost fragile. Esther tried not to stare, but as the silence stretched, she found herself listening to the sound of Selina's sighs, her low mutters. Then, suddenly, voices. Esther froze. She hadn't seen Anthony Grayson enter, but there he was, standing in the doorway, tall and broad-shouldered, his presence filling the room like smoke. His hair was silver at the temples, his suit immaculate, his expression unreadable. Selina stiffened in her chair. Still here, Anthony said, his voice low and smooth. Of course you are. I have work to do, Selina replied without looking at him. You always have work to do. And yet somehow, it's never enough. Selina's fingers tightened on the pen in her hand. I handle more than anyone else in this building. You know it. Anthony stepped closer, his eyes cold. What I know is that you make mistakes. Little ones. Sloppy ones. And mistakes destroy empires. Esther held her breath, hidden in the corner, praying they wouldn't notice her. Selina finally looked up at her father, her jaw tight. Maybe the problem isn't my mistakes. Maybe it's you. Anthony's eyes narrowed. What did you say? You heard me. Selina's voice was sharp, but underneath it trembled. You built this company on lies. I know it. And one day, those lies will come back to crush you. For a moment, silence. Then Anthony gave a thin smile. Careful, Selina. You're playing with fire. And fire doesn't forgive. He turned and left without another word. Selina sat very still, her shoulders tense, her hands trembling slightly where they rested on the desk. Esther couldn't move. She felt as though she had stumbled into something forbidden, something dangerous. The next morning, an envelope appeared on Esther's desk. No name. No note. Just a plain brown envelope. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside were photocopied documents, contracts, bank records, legal papers, all pointing to shady deals and hidden payments tied to Anthony Grayson. Esther's breath caught. Was this proof that her father had been right all along? That Grayson had destroyed him with lies? But who had sent it? And why to her? She glanced towards Selina's office, where the woman sat typing, her face a mask of calm. Esther's mind swirled with questions, suspicion, fear. Could it be Selina? Was she secretly fighting against her father too? Or was this a trap? That evening, Esther lingered as the office emptied. She had made up her mind. She had to know. She waited until Selina stepped out, taking a call in the hallway, her voice sharp and low. Quickly, Esther slipped into her office. Her eyes darted to the locked drawer. The silver key was still in the lock. Her hand shook as she turned it. The drawer slid open with a soft click. Inside lay files, letters, even photographs. And on top, one sheet of paper caught her eye, a list of names. Her father's name was on it. Enjoying yourself. Esther spun around. Selina stood in the doorway, her eyes dark, her voice quiet but dangerous. Esther's throat went dry. I wasn't. Selina stepped forward slowly, closing the door behind her. Curiosity, remember? I told you it can be dangerous. For a long moment, They just stared at each other. Then Selena said softly, almost like a confession, "You think I don't know what my father did to yours? I know more than you realize." Esther's heart pounded. Then why? Because knowing and proving are two different things. Selena's voice hardened. And trust me, Esther Jones, you don't want to be on the wrong side of the truth. Esther walked home that night with her mind in turmoil. Her father's warnings echoed in her head. The Graysons are poison. But now, Selena wasn't just her rival. She was a mystery, a danger, and maybe, just maybe, the only person who could tell her what really happened. The next morning, Esther could hardly concentrate. The documents from the anonymous envelope burned in her mind. The memory of Selena's sharp warning in the office the night before echoed in her ears. "You think I don't know what my father did to yours? I know more than you realize." Esther sat at her small desk, flipping through meaningless notes, pretending to work. Every now and then, she glanced towards Selena's glass office. Selena was there as usual, calm and controlled, typing as if nothing had happened. But Esther knew. Behind that mask, something else was going on. By evening, when most of the staff had gone, Esther made up her mind. She couldn't keep tiptoeing around this. She gathered her courage, walked into Selena's office, and closed the door behind her. Selena looked up, unimpressed. "What are you doing?" "We need to talk," Esther said firmly. Selena leaned back in her chair, folding her arms. "About what?" "You know what. My father. Anthony Grayson. Those papers in your drawer. The envelope on my desk. I need answers, Selena. If you know something, then tell me." For a moment, silence. Selena's sharp blue eyes searched hers, weighing her. Then she gave a short laugh. "You're braver than I thought. Stupid, but brave." "I'm not here to play games," Esther shot back. "I want the truth. Did your father destroy mine?" Selena's expression shifted, just slightly. Her smirk faded, her eyes darkened. "Yes," she said finally. Her voice was low, steady. "He did." Esther's breath caught. Hearing it aloud, from her, made it real in a way her father's angry mutterings never had. Selena stood and walked to the window, looking out at the glowing skyline. "But here's the thing, Esther. Anthony Grayson doesn't just ruin people for fun. He ruins them because it's necessary, for him. He sees threats, and he eliminates them. Your father was one of them." Esther swallowed hard. "And you're okay with that? You just stand by and let him?" "No." Selena snapped, spinning around, her eyes blazing. "Do you think it's easy for me, living under his shadow? Do you think I haven't seen what he is? What he does?" Her voice broke slightly, though she fought to steady it. "I hate him as much as you do." Esther stared, stunned. "You hate your own father?" Selena gave a bitter smile. "Hate and love are not so different, are they? He raised me, shaped me, and he owns me. But yes, I hate him. And one day, I will see him fall." For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, Esther whispered, "Then help me." Selena raised an eyebrow. "Help you? Do what?" "Bring him down," Esther said, her voice trembling but resolute. "If you know the truth, if you have proof, then we can expose him together." Selena studied her closely, as though searching for cracks. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Maybe," she said softly. "But understand this, Esther, if we do this, it's dangerous. More dangerous than you know. My father doesn't forgive betrayal. Not even from me." "I don't care," Esther said. "I want justice." Selena gave a cold smile. "Justice? Don't fool yourself. This isn't about justice. It's about revenge. For both of us." Esther's heart pounded, but she didn't back down. "Then let's do it." Selina held out her hand. For a moment, Esther hesitated. Shaking hands with her rival, the woman who had made her life miserable, felt wrong. But then she took it. Their fingers closed tightly. An uneasy alliance was born. Over the next days, the air between them shifted. Outwardly, Selina was the same, sharp, demanding, cold. But in quiet moments, when no one else was watching, their eyes would meet and something unspoken would pass between them. Late nights became their secret hours. Esther would stay behind, pretending to file papers, while Selina slipped her documents, whispered instructions, gave hints about where to look. "Check the archives on the 12th floor," Selina murmured one evening. "There are contracts there, hidden in plain sight. They'll show how my father moved money illegally. Why keep them here at all?" Esther whispered back. "Because he's arrogant," Selina said bitterly. "He thinks no one would dare look." And she was right. But trust was fragile. Esther still remembered her father's warning, "The Graysons are poison." And Selina never let her forget the danger either. One night, as they huddled over papers spread across a desk, Selina said quietly, "Don't think this makes us friends. We're allies. That's all." "I know," Esther said. "Do you?" Selina's eyes were sharp. "Because one mistake, Esther, and this could cost us both everything, including our lives." The words sent a shiver down Esther's spine. But she nodded. She had made her choice. The more they dug, the deeper the rot went. Documents hidden in company files. Payments disguised as donations. Names of people bribed into silence. Every discovery was like peeling back another layer of Anthony Grayson's empire, and each one made Esther's stomach churn. But it wasn't just Grayson's secrets they uncovered. There were hints, scattered notes, whispers in the margins, that pointed back to her own father, Wilson Jones. At first, Esther ignored them. She told herself they didn't mean anything. Her father had been a victim, not a villain. But late one night, alone in the dim office, she found a contract with his signature. A deal gone wrong. And next to it, a note, "Jones's mistake, easy to exploit." Her hands trembled. Had her father played a part in his own downfall? The next evening, she confronted Selina. "This doesn't make sense," Esther said, holding up the file. "Look at this. It says my father made an error," Selina finished. "Yes, he did. And my father took advantage of it." Esther shook her head, refusing to believe it. "No. He told me Grayson destroyed him. That he was innocent." Selina's eyes softened, just slightly. "Maybe he believed that. Or maybe he didn't want you to know the truth." Esther felt her chest tighten. The world tilted. "Are you saying my father lied to me?" Selina was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I'm saying everyone lies, Esther. Especially fathers." Esther turned away, her eyes stinging. She wanted to scream, to tear the papers apart, to deny it. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted. That night, when Esther returned home, Wilson was waiting. "You're late," he said sharply. "Where were you?" "Working," Esther muttered, dropping her bag. Wilson stood, his eyes blazing. "With her? With Selina Grayson? Don't think I don't know. I told you not to trust her." Esther's heart raced. "I'm not trusting her. She stopped. What could she say? That she was working with Selina against Anthony? That she was risking everything with the daughter of his enemy? Wilson stepped closer, his face hard. "Listen to me, Esther. You're all I have left. Don't betray me. Use her, if you must, but never let her use you. Promise me." Esther clenched her fists. "I promised you once. But maybe you weren't honest with me either." Wilson froze. "What are you talking about?" She looked at him, tears burning in her eyes. "Did you make a mistake, Dad? Did you give Grayson the chance to ruin you?" His face went pale. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he growled, "Don't you dare repeat his lies. Don't you dare, Esther. Everything that happened, everything, was his fault. Not mine." But his voice cracked, just slightly. Enough to make her doubt. Esther stared at him, her heart breaking. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to hold on to the picture of her father as the innocent man who had been destroyed by monsters. But the papers said otherwise. And Selina's words echoed in her mind. Everyone lies, Esther. Especially fathers. Back at the office, tension grew between her and Selina. Selina noticed the distance, the hesitation in Esther's eyes. One night, as they pored over more documents, Selina said sharply, "What's wrong with you? You're distracted." Esther looked up. "Because this isn't just about your father. It's about mine too. And I don't know what to believe anymore." Selina's voice softened. "Then believe me when I say this. Anthony Grayson is the real enemy. Whether your father made mistakes or not doesn't change that." Esther closed her eyes, torn between loyalty to Wilson and this fragile, dangerous bond with Selina. The cliff came quickly. One evening, Esther returned to her desk to find another envelope waiting. Inside were photos, grainy, but clear enough. Her and Selina. Together. Leaning close over documents. Talking in whispers. A note was scrawled beneath. "We know." Esther's blood ran cold. Someone was watching. And Anthony Grayson was not blind. The photos wouldn't leave her mind. They sat in her desk drawer, hidden under files, but Esther could feel them staring at her every second of the day. Each picture showed her and Selina leaning close, whispering, sharing papers that should have never been in their hands. The note underneath was burned into her memory. "We know." Who was we? Anthony? His loyal staff? Someone else entirely? Esther didn't know, but fear settled in her stomach like ice. That evening, Selina found her sitting at her desk long after most of the office had emptied. Esther's hands were pressed to her temples, her eyes hollow. "You look like death," Selina said, walking in with her usual calm stride. Esther looked up, her voice shaking. "Someone knows. Look." She slid the envelope across the desk. Selina picked it up, studied the photos without a word. When she finished, she set them down carefully. "So," Selina said softly, "the game has begun. You're not worried?" Esther demanded. "They could use this against us." "Of course I'm worried," Selina said. Her calm tone made it sound like she wasn't, but her hands betrayed her. Her fingers drummed against the desk, restless. "But panic won't help us. Whoever sent this hasn't gone to my father yet. Otherwise, we'd already be finished. That means they want something." "What?" Esther asked. Selina's lips curved into a bitter smile. "Maybe to watch us squirm. Maybe to push us into making mistakes. Either way, we need to be careful." Esther buried her face in her hands. "This was a mistake. Working with you was a mistake." The words slipped out before she could stop them. Silence fell. Esther lifted her head, instantly regretting it. Selina was staring at her, her eyes icy, her expression unreadable. "So that's how you feel," Selina said slowly. "I didn't mean." "Yes, you did." Selina stood, her voice sharper now. "You've been doubting me from the start. I can see it in your eyes. Every time I tell you the truth, you look at me like I'm lying. So tell me, Esther, do you really think I'm the enemy?" Esther opened her mouth, but no words came. Selina's laugh was low, bitter. "You don't know what you think. You're torn between me and your father, and sooner or later, you'll have to choose. And when you do, I hope you're ready for the cost." She left without another word, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. At home, Wilson was waiting for her. He had a bottle of whiskey on the table, nearly empty, and his eyes were bloodshot. "You've been late again," he muttered. Always late. What is she making you do, that snake's daughter? Esther sat heavily across from him. Dad, stop. Please. I can't do this tonight. Wilson slammed the bottle down. You think I don't know? You're working with her. You're letting her pull you into their web. Esther's chest tightened. It's not like that. Then what is it? His voice rose. What could possibly make you stay there, in that viper's den? Unless, he narrowed his eyes. Unless you're turning against me too. Esther's breath caught. What? Don't act innocent. Wilson snapped. I see it in your eyes. Doubt. You've been poisoned by her lies. Esther's hands trembled. She remembered the documents, the mistake her father might have made. His refusal to answer her directly. Dad! Her voice broke. Did you lie to me? His face hardened. Everything I told you was true. But the papers. They're forged, he shouted. Can't you see? This is what Anthony does. He twists reality until you don't know what's real anymore. Esther flinched at the force of his anger. Esther! His tone softened suddenly, almost pleading. You're my daughter. My only daughter. Don't betray me. Promise me you won't take her side. Esther stared at him, her heart breaking. I don't know what side I'm on anymore. She left before he could answer, her eyes wet, her chest aching with confusion. The next day at work, Selina didn't speak to her. She handed Esther files without a glance, gave her tasks without words, treated her like air. It hurt more than Esther expected. By evening, she couldn't take it anymore. She went into Selina's office and closed the door. Selina didn't look up. What do you want? Esther hesitated. I'm sorry. For what? For doubting you. For what I said. Finally, Selina looked at her. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes were softer than before. You don't know how dangerous this is, Selina said quietly. If you doubt me, even for a second, you'll break. And if you break, we both fall. I know, Esther whispered. Do you? Selina leaned forward. Because once we go further, there's no turning back. If you betray me, I'll destroy you myself. Do you understand? Esther's throat tightened, but she nodded. Good. Selina leaned back. Then let's continue. And just like that, the fragile pact was restored. But the cracks were growing. That night, Esther dreamed of fire. Of her father's face twisted in rage, of Selina's eyes full of secrets, of Anthony's cold smile. She woke in the dark, her heart pounding, and knew one thing for certain. The worst was still coming. The following week was suffocating. Anthony Grayson's presence hung heavier over the office than usual. He prowled the halls, asking sharp questions, demanding answers, his eyes piercing. It felt as though he was hunting, waiting for someone to slip. Esther avoided him as best she could, but when his gaze landed on her, she felt exposed, like he could see straight into her thoughts. One evening, as she carried a stack of files across the lobby, she heard him speaking to Selina in his office. The door was slightly ajar, his voice low but hard. You're slipping, Anthony said. No, Selina replied firmly. Yes. I see the cracks. You're distracted. And I won't tolerate weakness. I'm not weak, Selina snapped. Anthony's voice turned colder. Then prove it. Find the traitor in this company. Find the one feeding lies. And when you do, cut them out. Esther's stomach dropped. He knew. Maybe not who, not yet. But he knew something. She hurried away before they could notice her. Later that night, she found Selina in the empty office, sitting alone in the dark. The city lights glowed outside the glass windows, but Selina's face was shadowed. He suspects us, Esther whispered. I know. Selina's voice was flat. What do we do? Selina looked up at her, her eyes sharp. We move faster. We find the last piece of proof before he finds us. But what if? No, what ifs, Esther, Selina cut in. This is survival. If he discovers us, we're finished. Do you understand? Esther nodded, though fear knotted her stomach. The following days were a blur of secrecy. Late nights, hidden documents, whispered conversations. Esther felt like she was living two lives, dutiful assistant by day, conspirator by night. But the weight grew heavier. Her father's suspicion, Selina's sharp demands, Anthony's looming shadow, it was too much. One night, after hours of sifting through papers, Esther finally broke. I can't keep doing this, she whispered, slamming a folder shut. It's eating me alive. Selina looked up, startled. Esther's voice shook. I don't know who to believe anymore. My father says one thing, the papers say another, and you, she pointed at Selina. You say you hate Anthony, but you still protect him in front of everyone. How do I know you won't turn on me? For once, Selina didn't snap back. She leaned back in her chair, her face weary. You don't, she admitted softly. You don't know. And I don't know if I can trust you either. That's the truth. Esther stared, stunned. Selina gave a faint, bitter smile. But sometimes, mistrust is all we have. And it has to be enough. A storm broke 2 nights later. Esther returned to her desk to find another envelope. She opened it with trembling hands. This time, there was only one photo. Her father, Wilson Jones, walking into a dim bar. And across from him at the table, Anthony Grayson. Her heart stopped. Beneath the photo, a note. Who is betraying who, Esther? She rushed to Selina, shoving the photo into her hands. Selina's face hardened. So it's true. What's true? Esther demanded. Your father, Selina said coldly. He's been meeting mine. Maybe feeding him information. Maybe bargaining behind your back. Did you know? No. Esther cried. He would never. Wouldn't he? Selina snapped. You've doubted him already. Now you see it. He's not innocent. Maybe he never was. Tears blurred Esther's vision. You don't know that. And neither do you, Selina said. But we don't have time for denial. If Anthony knows your father is weak, he'll use it against us both. You'd better decide, Esther. Whose side are you on? Esther's chest ached. She thought of Wilson's desperate eyes, begging her not to betray him. She thought of Selina's sharp warning, if you betray me, I'll destroy you myself. She was trapped between two worlds, both built on lies, both demanding her loyalty. And she didn't know how much longer she could survive in the tightening web. The photo of her father with Anthony Grayson haunted Esther all night. She lay awake staring at her ceiling, replaying every word Wilson had said to her, every desperate plea to trust him, every denial of blame. But the evidence, that single picture, gnawed at her like a parasite. By morning, she felt like a shell of herself. She barely heard the world as she walked into Grayson Enterprises. Her legs carried her to Selina's office on instinct, though part of her dreaded what would come next. Selina didn't greet her. She stood at the window, arms folded, watching the city skyline. So, Selina said, her voice sharp as glass, have you decided? Decided what? Esther's throat was dry. Whose side you're on? Selina turned, her eyes piercing. Because right now, it looks like your father is feeding my father information. And if that's true, you're compromised. Esther's hands shook. You think I'd betray you? After everything? Selina stepped closer. I don't know what to think. I only know what I saw. She tapped the photo on her desk. Esther swallowed hard. Maybe he was trying to protect me. Maybe he thought he could reason with Anthony. Selina gave a bitter laugh. Anthony doesn't reason. He devours. And if your father's gone to him, then either he's already lost, or he's selling you out. The words stabbed deep. Esther turned away, her voice trembling. You sound just like him. Always telling me not to trust anyone. Always warning me the world is against me. Because it is, Selina said coldly. You're just realizing it too late. That evening, Esther returned home to find Wilson waiting in the living room. He was pacing, his face lined with exhaustion and fury. You've been with her again, he said before she could even set her bag down. Esther froze. Dad! I know! Wilson shouted, his voice breaking. I know you've been conspiring with that girl. With Grayson's blood. Her chest tightened. And I know you've been meeting Anthony, she snapped back. The words hit like a slap. Wilson stopped, his face twisting in shock and anger. You spied on me. I didn't need to. Esther cried. She pulled the photo from her bag and threw it onto the table. This was left for me. So tell me, Dad. Tell me why you've been meeting the man who ruined us. Wilson stared at the photo, his hands trembling. For a long time, he said nothing. Finally, his voice came, low and broken. Because I thought I could end this. I thought I could get our life back. Esther's heart cracked. By crawling to him. By bargaining with him. Wilson's voice rose. I thought if I showed him I wasn't a threat anymore, he'd stop hunting me. Stop watching you. Do you know what it's like, Esther? To live every day waiting for the enemy to crush you again? I was trying to protect you. Tears stung her eyes. Protect me. By lying to me. By making me hate Selina, when all this time you were the one running to her father. Wilson's face crumpled. I did what I thought was best. No, Dad, Esther whispered, her chest aching. You did what was easiest. You let your fear decide everything. And now I don't know if I can even trust you. His eyes burned with desperation. Don't say that. You're all I have, Esther. Don't turn your back on me. But she couldn't answer. Not then. Not with the weight of his lies crushing her chest. The next day, Anthony summoned both Esther and Selina to his office. The room was silent except for the ticking of the clock on the wall. Anthony sat behind his massive desk, fingers steepled, eyes sharp and unreadable. I've been watching, he said finally, and I've come to a conclusion. Esther's stomach twisted. Selina sat rigid beside her, her face carefully blank. There is betrayal in this company, Anthony continued. Documents stolen. Secrets whispered where they shouldn't be. I don't tolerate weakness, and I don't forgive betrayal. He leaned back, his gaze sweeping over both of them. The problem is, Anthony said softly, I don't know which of you it is. Yet. Esther's breath caught. Selina's hands tightened into fists. So here is what will happen, Anthony said, his voice like ice. One of you will walk away. The other won't. I will know who betrays me by the end of this week. And when I do, he gave a thin smile, there will be no mercy. The silence that followed was suffocating. Esther could barely breathe as she followed Selina out of the office. Once the door closed behind them, she finally whispered, he knows. Yes, Selina said grimly. And now the real test begins. That night, Esther stood outside her apartment, unable to go inside. She felt caught between two collapsing worlds, her father demanding loyalty, Selina demanding trust, and Anthony ready to destroy them both. She thought of her father's desperate face. She thought of Selina's cold warning. She thought of Anthony's smile. And for the first time, she wondered if survival meant betraying one of them, or betraying herself. The week that followed was like walking a tightrope over fire. Anthony prowled the halls, his gaze sharp, his questions sharper. Every word Esther spoke felt like a test, every glance from Selina a reminder that time was running out. The pressure built until Esther thought she might break. It ended on a stormy night. Anthony called a board meeting, unusual, sudden, and charged with tension. Esther was forced to attend as Selina's assistant. Wilson showed up too, pale and shaken, summoned by Anthony himself. The room buzzed with whispers as Anthony stood at the head of the table, a folder in his hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said calmly, "tonight we deal with betrayal." Esther's blood ran cold. Anthony opened the folder and pulled out several photographs, Esther and Selina whispering, exchanging papers, sneaking through files. Gasps echoed around the room. Wilson staggered to his feet. "No!" he shouted. "It's not her fault, it's me. I went to you, Anthony, I tried to." "Silence!" Anthony cut him off, his voice deadly. "You betrayed yourself long ago, Wilson. This is your daughter's betrayal." Esther's chest heaved. She looked at Selina, expecting her to deny it, to turn on her. But Selina stood tall, her face hard. "It wasn't Esther," Selina said clearly. "It was me." The room froze. Anthony's eyes narrowed. "Careful, Selina." "I'm not careful," Selina snapped. "I'm tired. Tired of living under your shadow. Tired of cleaning up your mess. Tired of pretending I don't know what you did to Wilson Jones. You destroyed his life, and you called it business. You taught me to lie, to betray, to be like you. But I'm done." Gasps filled the room. Anthony's face darkened. "You ungrateful child," he hissed. "No," Selina said, her voice shaking but strong. "Just your daughter. And I won't be silent anymore." She pulled papers from her bag, documents Esther hadn't even known she'd taken. Financial reports, forged deals, evidence of Anthony's crimes. She slammed them onto the table. "This is who he is," Selina said to the room. "This is the empire he built. Not on strength, but on lies." Chaos erupted. Board members whispered, some stood, others demanded explanations. Anthony's fury filled the room like fire. "You think you can destroy me?" he thundered. Selina met his gaze, her jaw tight. "No. I think I already have." In the chaos, Wilson stumbled toward Esther, his face wet with tears. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "For everything. I thought I could protect you, but I only dragged you deeper. Forgive me, Esther. Please." Esther clutched his hand, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I don't know if I can. But I'll try." Anthony's voice roared above them. "You are no daughter of mine," he shouted at Selina. Selina flinched, but she didn't look away. "Maybe not," she whispered. "But I am no one's pawn anymore." Security rushed in. The board meeting collapsed into chaos. Anthony tried to fight, tried to claw back control, but the evidence was too strong, the witnesses too many. By the end of the night, the empire of Anthony Grayson was burning. Days later, Esther stood outside the ruins of her old life. Her father had broken under the weight of truth, retreating into silence. Anthony was disgraced, his empire crumbling. And Selina was still standing. Bruised, scarred, but standing. They met one last time on a rainy evening, outside the building that had once symbolized Anthony's power. "So," Esther said quietly, "what are we now?" Selina gave a faint smile. "Not enemies. Not friends. Something worse." Esther nodded, her heart heavy. Daughters of enemies. And daughters of ruins. They stood together in silence, the rain washing over them, bound by fire, betrayal, and a truth that could never be undone. And in that silence, Esther realized something chilling. They weren't free. They were just the beginning. If you thought you could predict who's loyal and who's lying, think again. Hit that like button if you felt the tension, subscribe for more twists and dark secrets, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next shocking chapter. Tell us in the comments, whose side would you choose in a world where trust is a deadly game?